Thank you for being here, loyal blog readers and listeners, for the next episode of our regular podcast series, the Class Action Weekly Wire. My name is Jerry Maatman, and I'm a partner at Duane Morris, and joining me today are my colleagues and fellow partners, Jen Riley and Daniel Spencer. Welcome.
Great to be here, Jerry. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks, Jerry.
Today we're here to announce our publication of the 2026 edition of Duane Morris's EEOC and Government Enforcement Litigation Review. The review is available on our blog site as an ebook and is a must-read for employers.
Absolutely, Jerry. Government enforcement litigation continues to look more and more like class action litigation in terms of both its exposure and its complexity. When you're dealing with lawsuits brought by agencies like the EEOC or the Department of Labor, you're often looking at significant risk, a large number of claimants, and serious reputational concerns for the companies involved.
And one of the key points that we emphasize in the review is that while these cases resemble class actions, they don't actually operate the same way procedurally. In private class actions, plaintiffs have to jump through a bunch of hoops like Rule 23 to get through class certification. That's not the case with government enforcement litigation.
Exactly. A great example is what are known as EEOC systemic pattern or practice lawsuits, where there's no class certification requirement, and the practical impact of the case, however, is just like a class action in terms of the amount of money necessary to defend it, the amount of management time that has to be allocated to the defense of the case, and the need to defend against widespread company-wide allegations of alleged discriminatory behavior. It's certainly a high-stakes sort of lawsuit.
And that's why employers cannot afford to underestimate these cases. Even without Rule 23, EEOC systemic lawsuits raise many of the same strategic and litigation challenges as private class actions raise. And those agencies are aggressive. The EEOC and the DOL, they continue to be two of the most active federal enforcement bodies.
Yeah, Jen, and the numbers from 2025 really drive that point home. In fact, the top 10 EEOC enforcement action settlements and verdicts totaled 41.43 million, which is a notable increase from 25.95 million in 2024. The trend tells us that enforcement activity is not slowing down.
I think it's pertinent to note that the Department of Labor numbers are even more eye-popping from the perspective of corporate decision makers. In 2025, the top 10 settlements in the DOL space totaled $3.29 billion. That was up quite a bit from 2024 when it was 335 million. So you can see how dramatic the increase has been with the Department of Labor on its radar screen, looking for employers engaged in what it calls as alleged wage theft against workers.
Those DOL cases covered a range of issues also, Fair Labor Standards Act claims, as well as litigation involving consent decrees and injunctions. The rulings we analyze in the review show how broad and potentially impactful the DOL enforcement actions can be.
And that's why this review is so important for companies across the country. It looks at the legal issues that are being litigated, the enforcement strategies these agencies are using, and identifies and understands those critical trends for companies trying to stay ahead of the risk.
Well, that's well said, Jen and Daniel. And for anyone who wants to dig deeper, the full review is available in ebook format on the Duane Morris Class Action Defense blog. And we'll be continuing to cover legal developments and rulings in the EEOC and the DOL space over the remainder of 2026. So stay tuned to the Class Action Weekly Wire.
Thanks for having me on the podcast, Jerry, and thanks to our listeners for being here. As always, subscribe to stay updated on the latest trends in class action law.
Glad to be a part of the podcast, and thanks very much to all the listeners. Be sure to download your copy of the review today.